We rely on AI for so much these days. Answers, ideas, you name it. But what you might not realize is that behind that simple chat window, there's a huge battle going on. A constant fight for fairness. And, well, for the truth.
So that really gets us to the big question, doesn't it? When you ask your AI assistant something, are you getting the full, unbiased story? Or is the answer you get being subtly nudged by all the messy, biased data it learned from the internet?
Well, today, we're going to find out. Think of it like this. We're putting 4 of the biggest AIs on the witness stand. We're going to hear how they claim to stay neutral, we'll check out the hard evidence from the lab, and then, and this is the best part, I'm going to give you the exact tool you need to become a bias detective yourself.
Okay, first things first, let's meet the subjects of our investigation. You've definitely heard of these, and they all share one massive common problem.
So in our lineup, we've got Grok from xAI, ChatGPT from OpenAI, Google's Gemini, and Claude from Anthropic. And their shared challenge? It's simple, but it's huge. The internet, their main source of knowledge, is just not a neutral place. It's more like a gigantic, chaotic library filled with facts, opinions, and a whole lot of spin. And it's their job to sort through all of it for us.
So, how on earth do they do it? Let's hear their testimony. We dug into how each one of them tries to provide balanced, factual answers. And what's fascinating is that they basically fall into 2 completely different camps.
Okay, so in one corner, you've got the live web filterers. This is Grok, Gemini, and Claude. When you ask them a question, they are actively searching the internet, right then and there. Their whole game is about filtering out the bias from live search results in real time. Then, in the other corner, you have the curated data team. This is OpenAI. Their models are trained on a huge but static snapshot of the web. So for them, the challenge isn't about filtering the live internet, it's about trying to undo the biases that got baked into their system from the very beginning.
So for those live filters, how do they decide what to trust? Well, they use a kind of legitimacy checklist. Grok and Claude are looking for stuff like a source's track record and whether they cross-verify information. Gemini uses something pretty similar, a framework it calls EEAT. That stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. It's all about judging the source on the fly.
And then you've got ChatGPT. It takes a completely different road. In its own words, it told us, I don't browse the internet or pull from media. I'm not choosing CNN over Fox or vice versa. And that's really the key difference. It's not making real-time calls on sources. It's using an internal system to sort through the information it already knows.
And this is what that internal system looks like. Think of it as a fact hierarchy. At the very top, you've got Tier A, verified facts, scientific consensus. The AI is trained to present this stuff as objective truth. But as you go down the list, things change. By the time you get to Tier C, things like political commentary, the AI's job is to present it as just one possible viewpoint, not as absolute fact. It's like having a library that's already been organized by how reliable the books are.
Okay, so you might be wondering, is there an official rulebook I can read? Well, kinda. Grok is actually pretty open about it. You can go on GitHub and see its public prompts that guide its behavior. And Gemini points to Google's public AI principles. But for OpenAI and Claude, it's a bit different. It's less of a public rulebook and more of an internal philosophy based on their own research and guiding principles.
Right. So that's what the AIs say they're doing, but talk is cheap, right? Let's move from claims to actual evidence. We're going to look at a study from OpenAI's own research lab that dives into how bias can creep into a normal conversation. The researchers were looking at something they call first-person fairness. Now, this isn't about bias in some abstract, high-level way. This is about how it can affect you personally in a chat. For example, they wanted to know, could simply telling the AI your name actually change how it responds to you?
And the way they studied this was actually pretty brilliant. I mean, how do you analyze millions of private chats without, invading people's privacy? They used another AI, which they called a language model research assistant, to find the patterns for them. They literally had an AI auditing another AI.
So what did they find? Well, the big headline number is this, less than 1%. When the AI did change its response because of a name, less than 1% of the time did that change reflect a harmful stereotype. So yeah, it can happen, but this study shows it's pretty rare, at least in this specific scenario.
And this chart really tells the story. You can see a clear trend here. The older models, like GPT 3.5 Turbo, had the highest rate of this name-based bias. But look at the newer models. They've gotten way better, consistently keeping that rate below 1%.
So the takeaway here is they're not just aware of the problem, they're actively making progress on it.
Okay, so we've heard the testimony, we've seen the lab reports. Now it's time to put all this into practice. It's your turn. I'm going to arm you with a really powerful method for running your own investigation on any AI you want.
It's called the Complex Contradiction Challenge, and it's designed to really put an AI on the spot. Here's how it works. First, pick a topic that people are really divided on. Then, give the AI two strong, opposing arguments about it. Now, step 3 is the secret sauce. You give it super strict rules, like it has to give equal word count to both sides and can't use any subjective words. Finally, you make it tell you what conclusion it can draw based only on the limited data you gave it.
When you get that response, this checklist is your detective kit. First, check the word count. Is it lopsided? That's a red flag. What about the tone? Is it respectful to one side and kind of dismissive of the other? Another red flag. Or did it just break the rules completely and start throwing in its own opinion? Or maybe it just refused to answer. All of these are telltale signs that some bias might be leaking through.
So, we've gone through the strategies, we've looked at the evidence, and now you have a tool for your own investigation. This all brings us to the final verdict, at least for now.
And hey, don't worry about scribbling all those steps down. We've put the entire Complex Contradiction Challenge prompt for you in the description below. It even has some really juicy examples you can try out. Just copy-paste and start your investigation.
Which really leaves us with this one big final question. Look, the evidence suggests that these companies are trying to get this right and the tech is improving. But these AI systems are not static. They are learning and changing every single day. So the real challenge isn't just about figuring out if we can trust them today. It's about how we build the systems and the tools to make sure we can still trust them tomorrow and the day after that. What do you think?